Welcome to another edition of Pro Hire Truck TV. Today we're going to do something, I guess I always say it's a little different, and I suppose to a certain degree this is a little different, so excuse me, I'm not feeling my normal self, for those who know me well, so I feel a bit croaky, so apologies for the quality of the sound. I think one of the things I wanted to try and talk about, and one of the things that we get asked a lot about, is in our space, especially from ProGreen, is our battery power and technology, and the difference between lithium ion, lithium iron phosphate, solid state batteries. So what I wanted to try and do today was just maybe have a small delve into that, because I guess the challenge around commercial vehicles especially, and not so much cars but commercial vehicles especially, is where we're going to get the range from and what is coming down the road next, and whether that's lithium ion or lithium iron phosphate batteries and so forth and so on, and everybody's got to a certain degree their own opinion in these areas, and I think from our point of view, I want to try and give you a feel for where I see this over the next 2 or 3 years, because there's going to be some significant changes in the industry, and just to give you a feel for what each of these things does quickly. And of course, as always on Pro Hire Truck TV and everything that we do, this information's available. Contact us, we'll happily talk this through you, show you in our training centre some of the things that we're doing on battery repair, etc., and walk you through it when we've got more time. But so from that point of view, I wanted to really just talk about on today's video the difference between lithium ion and solid state. So where we are with lithium ion batteries at the moment, they're the things that you see in most electric vehicles. So and lithium iron phosphate batteries are what we're seeing in the majority of your larger commercial vehicles, and especially in your large commercial vans, etc. And lithium ion cobalt metal batteries are what you see in your cars, especially in the likes of Tesla. So I think when we look at this as an overrider, then that leads into something which is going to be the game changer in the world. And of course, with solid state batteries, that's been something that people have been talking about for many years. So just like nuclear fusion, which I think is a long way away, I'm happy to say that solid state batteries is in a place where it's much closer to that. So don't distress. Lithium ion batteries, we look at it and it's ion, not iron, because that's a different battery again. So we're looking at lithium ions, and for those who don't know, they don't actually contain any metal whatsoever. But I think the biggest development in the last few years is to be able to scale the size of these batteries up. So lithium ion battery is what you will see in quite a lot of domestic units, in laptops, etc. And this is a scaled up version, of course, with many cells put into a larger pack to allow us to be able to operate them into larger vehicles, so big cars and larger vans. And I suppose to a certain degree, that's allowed the transition that we're seeing over the past few years into the very large increase in electric vehicles you see on the roads today, not just in the UK but right across the world. And I suppose to a certain degree, again, from my perspective, it's brilliant to see how the challenges have been met and how we're moving on with it. But of course, I suppose the next part for me is what comes after that. So that's where the big challenges are going to be for many manufacturers, and of course many people who are going to own vehicles over the next few years. As you start to see the changes, you're going to want to know very quickly what that means to you today, tomorrow, and in the future. So okay, how does a lithium ion battery work? So within the battery unit, there's a positive electrode, which is normally made from lithium compound, and a negative electrode, which is an electrolyte material which fills the rest of the unit. When electrical charge is added to the battery, the lithium ions move from the positive electrode to the negative one, which is kind of pretty much what you'd expect. When the energy is released from the battery, they move back in the opposite direction. So you charge one way and you then come back another. But that's a slow and cumbersome journey, because you're moving through an electrolyte which is dense, if you like, and that electric, and you can see it when you're trying to charge your electric car, for argument's sake, or small van. So depending on the size of the battery, you can take from a few hours to many hours to get that where you want it to be. And of course, when you're driving electric vehicles, as we do on a regular basis, it seems to release release the energy far more quickly than you can put it in, of course, and that's some of the challenges and the difference between the two batteries that we're going to talk about today. When we look at how batteries work, and I suppose the advantages are it's an electric vehicle, and I suppose the advantages are we've moved it into a very different space where you can now use them on a commercial and setting to offer some great space for you to work in. Of course, there's some big disadvantages with EV in particular, and certainly when it comes to lithium-ion batteries. Batteries, there is still a risk of overheating, so we're using a lot of coolant in here to try and keep the batteries cool. So there's weight involved in that, and of course it's again the challenges on the time it takes to charge. All manufacturers, and there are some fantastic manufacturers in the battery space have been investing massive lumps of money here now over the past few years to reduce the dangers and making batteries safer and safer and safer. And we see very few challenges now. In the early days, there was all sorts of issues with heat and fire. So the inclusion of cooling mechanisms to regulate the battery's temperature has taken away a lot of that challenge. However, they do contain liquid elements and undergo frequent temperature changes, and even in normal circumstances, there's always an ever-present risk. Another risk is the life expectancy, and I think when we first started looking at lithium-ion batteries, or I certainly started looking at lithium batteries going back now to probably 2005-06, the expected life cycle of a battery was around 2,000 or 3,000 cycles. What we're seeing now in this space is potentially 5,000 or 6,000 cycles before we start to see some serious degradation in the life of the battery. I suppose you might turn off and say, well, how much is the battery going to cost? I just have to say as well, when I talk about these being modular and I'm talking about cells, I think batteries, and I know batteries will be repairable like you would with an engine of a car, etc. So if you see in a battery that's capable of doing 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 cycles when looked after properly, it's giving some great life in that space as well. But able to repair it and do things with it in the future are going to be eminently there. You will lose, or the batteries will degrade over time, and as they degrade, you're typically going to lose around 20% of the capacity in that time. So the challenge, I suppose, is like everything else: how long are you going to keep the vehicle for? Are they capable of doing the job you've asked them to do in the first place, especially in the commercial vehicle world? And we get asked all the time, oh my God, when I'm using the vehicle for 3 or 4 years, am I going to be able to do the same thing with it as I did in the answer to that is almost certainly no. But if you bought a vehicle that's capable of doing a job and you've got some capacity built into it, then you can use that vehicle for many years. And I've only got to think of when you look back at the ability for milk floats to be going for 20 or 30 years in the UK roads. Lithium-ion, lead acid, different things, but equally so. If we spec the vehicle right in the first place, there is no reason why we can't get many years of life out of both lithium-ion and solid state. Again, disadvantage for me is the amount of time it takes to charge the battery. We're seeing a lot of manufacturers are restricting onboarding to 50 kilowatt hour, but that's heavy duty DC charging, and the majority of us will be using 7 kilowatt or 22 kilowatt charging. So again, it's just to give you an example in that space. If you're looking at 100 kilowatt hour batteries in a Tesla, say, you get to use about 80% of the actual, so 80 kilowatts of power. If you're charging at 7 kilowatts, it's going to take something in the region of 8, 9, 10 hours to charge that vehicle. Of course, the benefit of the Tesla, you put it onto a 150 kilowatt supercharger, you can charge that battery pack in an hour or so. So I think it's all about trying to get a feel for the benefit, the longevity. And I was doing some research recently with a firm in Germany, and they've had some lithium-ion batteries on their fleet now for a number of years, and some of these vehicles have covered 600,000 and 700,000 kilometres, and they're down to about 85% of their original capacity, which still is reasonably useful. So I've got a real feel that these batteries are here for a long time to come. But again, when we're taking into a solid state batteries, and I suppose I've only got a few minutes to talk about this, but more than happy to take into some serious detail when you're ready. It's lighter. It's using a solid material as an electrolyte, which is also lighter. The density of this product is twice that of a lithium-ion battery. So you can pack more power for your punch. So you can either put more equipment, more batteries onto the same vehicle, so therefore creating a much larger ranges. Or you can have a lighter vehicle, and do the same range you're currently doing at the moment. The chargeability of this product is much, much quicker when it comes into charging the vehicle. So you're not travelling through mud, if you like. You're travelling through a very clear, clean electrolyte, if you want to call it electrolyte, but it's solid. So either glass or ceramic, or there's been many other products used over the recent times. The big players, certainly when it comes to large car manufacturers, are seeing the solid-state battery as being their future of quick charging, large ranges. Of course, I don't want to take anything away from the lithium-ion batteries, of course, but this is certainly where some of the future, we believe the future is of this. Downside to this, of course, is the extreme cost of it. At the moment, we're still quite a way away from mass production of this equipment, and which also makes it expensive to put on. So not only can you put twice as much on, but it's going to be twice the cost. So I suppose it's great if you want it, and you're seeing the very large, expensive car manufacturers really focusing in on this, because it gives the people with a lot of money to spend, a much better product. I believe it's going to become much cheaper as it becomes more manufacturable, and as the products and that we're putting into these batteries change. But certainly from my space, you're taking a vehicle that's currently doing 200 or 300 miles, possibly making it 500 or 600 miles, and charging it instead of being, a couple of hours to many hours in charging all arenas for in a much shorter period of time. So it becomes much more usable. And of course, as you start moving that into like commercial vehicles and into larger commercial vehicles, the conversation is you can see the benefits of how that works. Of course, breaking it down and working through how these things work, they all operate in a very similar way. Power's coming in one side, it goes across the other side, and it's then released back into the atmosphere from the battery, holding it in place. The great thing about this as well, the anticipation is that we'll have many more charging cycles available to us in a solid-state battery than a standard lithium-ion battery. So yes, you'll pay more for it, you can put more in there, but then the conversation can be, how long do I use this equipment for? The days have gone in some of these spaces where you're going to use a vehicle for 2 or 4 years. Are we going to use it for 6-7 years? But having a battery that's able to support you in all of that time is clearly a cost of ownership conversation that, again, the ProGreen team are happy to take you through and give you some real cost of ownership models across all of the spectrums, against diesel, against CO2 savings, and of course particulate matter savings. I don't have a lot of time to talk about this in a short session like this, and I'm sure I could bore you to death. And if we're prepared to certainly have this conversation over many days and over the time to come. So we'd love to be involved in your conversation, in your journey here at the ProGreen team. And from iTruck.TV, it's a short interlude into two of the most talked about topics for us on a day-to-day basis on battery technology and how it's going to affect me or you and me over the next 5 to 10 years. It's great to be able to talk about these products, and it's another new session we're trying with some new equipment. I again apologise for my croaky voice today, but hopefully resume as normal in the very near future. Please like and subscribe if you can, and we look forward to seeing you really soon on another one of our videos on iTruck.TV. So take care and speak to you all soon. Bye bye.